The Businessin Wales Podcast, sponsored by Sinclair Group, the business media for Wales. Hello and welcome back to the Businessin Wales Podcast with me, Daniel Bevan. Now, as it's the new year, most of us have got our New Year's resolutions in place, and for a lot of us, including myself, it's to get back into shape. So I thought, let's get a guest on who not only knows all about that, but also all about business as well. Ollie Griffiths, former Wales and Dragons flanker, and now PT and property investor. Ollie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today, mate?
Yes, good. Thank you very much for having me. All good, thank you.
No, not too bad, not too bad. You've got a long bio, so I had to remember all of that. But I mean, let's actually start with the fitness stuff if we can, because I'm sure that's what a lot of people are going to want to be hearing about. For a lot of business people, time is of the essence, already quite time poor. So what's the best way of getting back into the gym, into a routine?
I work with a lot of guys, men and women, who are multiple business owners, CEOs, parents, and trying to juggle it all. And I say to them all, unless you find time for your health, your training, your fitness, ultimately you'll be forced to at some point further down the line. So it's just about prioritising it somewhat. I'm quite driven in terms of business myself. I got a young family, so understand the juggles of trying to make time for yourself. But I think people are often have got the wrong idea that training and fitness needs to be all consuming, but it's only a couple of hours a week, being a bit better with your food, and you'd be surprised the difference you can make.
Mm-hmm. So I'm a kind of person, I've been going to the gym this year. First thing in the morning, just drag yourself out of bed, get to the gym. I know that's not going to be for everyone, but obviously you've got to sort of work around those people's schedules. Is it, from your perspective, is there an ample time to get into the gym at all?
No, everyone's different. So I think you've got to find what works with your schedule. I know sometimes morning's difficult if you've got kids, if you start work early, but I say to a lot of guys who've got busy schedules, you've almost got to block it out as if it was a meeting or a call, because otherwise when you've got multiple things on, something's always going to fill that time, fill that gap. So treat it as an event, as a meeting, look at your week, see where you can make it fit, and then make it work for you.
So let's talk about how you transitioned into being a personal trainer, but also a strength and conditioning coach now at the Dragons. Obviously, a storied career at the Dragons, and also playing for Wales as well. Was it a natural transition for you to go from one to the other?
No, it was quite difficult, really knowing what I was going to do after I retired from professional rugby. Career was cut short, unfortunately. Built the property business for the last 10 years, so quite a fortunate position when I retired. I wasn't sort of rushing into another job. I had time to really spend some time thinking, reevaluating what my next steps were going to be. And training and fitness has always been a massive passion of mine. Property stuff was great, but it was nothing, it never really lit a fire in me and got me out of bed in the mornings to try to pursue something in that post-playing. It was always a means to an end. Still invested in property now, still involved in it, but it's not really my passion and something I want to spend every day doing, whereas training, fitness, strength and conditioning at the Dragons is something I enjoy, which at the end of the day is what it's all about ultimately.
So, starting a property business at 20, what was the driver behind that? Were you thinking, once my rugby career is over, I've got to have something to fall back on?
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I spoke to a couple of the older guys, and it used to make me laugh. They'd say the first time someone would sign a decent contract as a rugby player, they'd go out buy a super expensive car, Rolex, and then they'd go home to their parents' house, parked on the drive. And it just sort of made me think, like, the way rugby players' careers go is typically very different to most people. Like, you'll earn decent money for a few years and then it'll slowly start dropping as you get older, and all of a sudden it stops completely. So I always had that in the back of my mind. Spent a lot of time investing in my knowledge around property, speaking to mentors, paid for education, and always had it in the back of my mind that it's a short-lived career, and try to put things in place for when that did come, because I had absolutely no idea what I would do post-playing. There was nothing I was majorly interested in enough to study at university, that sort of thing. So I thought property was something I could put my all into alongside my playing career. And And like I said, fortunate enough, then when I did finish, I had a bit of time to think, and then that's when the online coaching business took off. And then shortly followed by being part-time at the Dragons as a strength and conditioner, predominantly for the forwards.
So is that something that at the moment in professional rugby there isn't quite a lot of talk about? I mean, presumably with people like yourself still in the game, you can pass on that kind of knowledge to the younger lads and say, listen, this isn't forever. You need to think about what the backup option is if it doesn't work out, for example.
Yeah, the WRPA do a lot of good work with everyone, regardless of your age, throughout the playing squad. But I think ultimately it's down to the individual to put a bit of time aside. We are quite fortunate as players. You do get a fair bit of spare time. It's just how you manage that time. But I completely see from a lot of people, they almost feel like a plan B is going to detract from their plan A, which is maximising their rugby career. But I don't think that's the case. I think you've seen it with no end of people who have got medicine degrees, Hallam Amos, Jamie Roberts. They managed to play at the highest level international rugby and still do their studies alongside that sort of thing. So I think it's super important. And for me, as I got towards the end of my career, it took a bit of pressure off, knowing that I'd had a few things in place. I could transition into something afterwards, whether it was property. It ended up not being so. But I think that worry, as you get later on into your career, that could potentially be last couple of months of your contract, or you're one injury away from your career being over, essentially, and then you're starting from scratch. It's quite a scary thing.
What is it like as a player in that scenario, thinking, gosh, if I just go into a tackle wrong, that could be it for me?
Yeah, it does play on your mind. I think more so like when I had my little girl, you've got your own house, your bills coming out, and you're looking at your contract, you've got 4 or 5 months left, and you've had a couple of injuries. It does definitely play on the back of your mind. I've seen some guys who have got a couple of months of their contract left, and then nothing comes for them, and they're trying to figure out what the next chapter of their life looks like. It is difficult, but I think that's just the nature of sport, and I think the sooner you realise that and the quicker you start putting things in place, the more you probably enjoy your rugby towards those later years in your career.
We're jumping around a little bit, so I'll focus us back onto the property side of things. So what was it necessarily about property? Because you say that you didn't have any particular interest. Was it just something that you found could have been something that you could manage alongside the rugby?
Yeah, that was the biggest thing for me, is I could essentially spend as much or as little time as I wanted on it, and I did massively enjoy it early on in my career. I'd spend no end of time, podcasts, books, buying experienced investors lunch just to pick their brains, spent some money on education around like finding deals, done a bit of work with estate agents, just shadowing them, understanding the market, what to look for in deals. So whenever I was injured, I feel like that was something nice to take my mind off the injury. You spend a lot less time in training when you've had an operation or you're injured, and unfortunately throughout my career I spent a lot of time injured. But I think it was nice to just switch off from the rugby side and pursue something differently. So yeah, that's gone really well over the last 10 years. At a point now we're still investing, still involved in property, but not growing as aggressively as I was early doors, as a lot of time now is spent on the coaching, which is more of a passion project, and really enjoy helping people with their fitness, their lifestyle.
So you've obviously built this brilliant company that renovates, invests in these properties. What have you learned from that business experience to essentially go into being a sole trader? I suppose it's a bit of a different business climate, isn't it, when you're going into being a PT?
Yeah, definitely. I think I've got a lot of experience in training, but there's so much more that goes into the online coaching space than just your understanding around nutrition, training protocols, that sort of thing. Social media has been a big one, but like I'm very pro investing in yourself, mentors, education. So it's something I've done in property early doors, something I'm doing now. So invested heavily into myself, got a mentor who works with a lot of online coaches, which has meant my service has improved, my understanding around everything has improved, social media has got better. So I think the learnings from the property side translating to the online coaching there's a lot of things which go hand in hand, but the big one is ultimately you get out what you put in. The more proactive you are in those early stages, investing in yourself, learning, reading about everything. I think you've got to be really open-minded to, there's so much that you still don't know.
What's the biggest mistake that people make when they're going to your sessions for the first time?
I think the biggest mistake I see a lot, so I'm mostly based online coaching, so I got a private gym from my own house. Jared Rosser, who's current player at Dragons Rugby, does a lot of one-to-one in-person sessions from there. He's also a coach, part of the coaching team. But I think a lot of people, they try to they go from 0 to 100, go from not training to wanting to train 5-6 times a week when motivation's high, whereas like you've got to play the long game and think what's realistic to be able to stick to for not just a couple of months when motivation's high when you've got a coach, but more so for the next 10, 20, 30 years, and just increasing your baseline really after what an acceptable week is for you. So for some people, it's not training at all. For some people, it's training 3 times a week and eating well 90% of the week. So like the coaching is all about just building those habits, increasing your baseline to what an acceptable week for you is like, because ultimately that's what's going to set you up for a healthy, happy life for the next 10, 20, 30 years, not just for a couple of months when you've got a coach, if that makes sense.
And speaking sort of directly to a business audience as you are now, what's the sort of pitch to be investing in yourself and being able to be healthier in order to be the better version of you?
So I've worked with a lot of business men, women, CEOs, founders, and a lot of them will say the same, that the impact it has on relationships, their energy, their business, it's not tangible. You can't really measure it on a spreadsheet, but it definitely spills into every aspect of your life, your family life. You've got more energy, you've got more patience, you're sleeping better, you feel better about yourself, you've got more confidence. So I just say find time for it. I know a lot of people listening to this podcast are probably super busy, super driven, which I'd imagine majority of the audience are. But like I said at the start, you've got to find time for your health. Otherwise, you'll be forced to do so later on. And ultimately, if you're the CEO or business person, your business relies on you having the ability to turn up every day, being healthy. So you've got to look after the number one driver in your business, which is yourself at the end of the day.
Sinclair Group has been part of the motor industry for over 80 years. That's not just a number, it's generations of trust built on shared values, because family isn't just who you're born to, it's who you choose to stand with, and that's what matters to us. We offer new and approved used vehicle sales and service for some of the world's biggest motor brands, and trust, that's at the heart of it all. So whether you're starting a journey or continuing a legacy, visit sinclairgroup.co.uk. Belong for good.
If you're somebody who's making those New Year's resolutions, as I say, like myself, and it has been a while since you've been to the gym, what is the best piece of advice that you can get in?
Don't try to pick up from where you left off. So if you're someone who used to train 4 or 5 times a week, super intense, then don't try to pick up from where you left off. It's usually a road to a little injury, a tweak in your back. So just build steadily into it. The big thing comes from diet. So anyone can go to the gym for an hour, a couple of times a week, but it's what you do away from there, the 23 hours of the day, is what's really important. And that's what I try to teach everyone I work with. Training intensity and having the right program is super important, but what really moves the needle is what you do away from the gym.
So you can't exercise away a bad diet.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
That.
Yeah, wonderful. And in your time of playing professional rugby, what was the coaching and the nutrition like? Have you taken much from that, or has it moved on now since then? I mean, you only finished playing a couple of years ago.
Yeah, no, like from early doors, it was only say 10, 12 years ago I started. So like strength and conditioning, the nutrition side of things was definitely still at the forefront, but probably even more so now. I think there's just so much competition across players, teams, everything now, where you've got to take that side of things super serious. Because if it's something players neglect, then they slowly but surely get found out.
Do you watch the game a fair bit differently now as a coach, do you think?
Since I finished, I always watch a game, whether it's live or on the TV, and it looks so much more physical than it used to feel playing. I think it's different when you're out there playing, you're in amongst it, adrenaline is high, but when I'm watching it and seeing some of the collisions, I think I I couldn't imagine doing that.
You're just sort of grateful to be up in the stands
Yeah,
instead.
exactly. That. I see, like in training, sometimes some of the guys and jumping on a tackle pad for them to do some shots and whatnot. Not like big Levi Douglas, our second row, hit me a couple of times the other day, and I just thought, how did I used to do this week on week?
Oh God! So how do you compare sort of weight wise to someone like Levi then? Were you
He's a big lad. He must be 125, 130 kilos, whereas I'm about 104 kilos. So he's a big guy. So feeling the shots, I haven't felt a hit like that for best part of 2 years now. So
Well, keep you on your toes at the very least. Yeah. So we touched on it there. You finished playing a couple of years ago, diagnosed with LCH, and just for the benefit of our listeners and for me as well, because I will admit of not actually of hearing of this until I was researching for this episode. Do you mind just explaining what actually LCH is?
Yeah, so it's something called Langerhans cell histiocytosis. So super complicated. It's a gene mutation essentially. It's typically found in young kids, but there are cases of adults. So it's super rare. I think don't quote me on this, but maybe 1 in 2 million people have it. Essentially a mutation in your cells. It's a form of cancer classed by the World Health Organization, but like super mild compared to other forms, depending on the severity of it. So I'm quite fortunate. I've only got it it was in my back. I had one in my hip, a lesion, which is like a small tumor as such. But it's typically like very treatable, whereas other people have different severities of it, where they may have it in like risk organs, so like liver, spleen, that sort of thing. It was a super scary time, and it made me realize like how precious your health really is. At the time, I was super like focused on rugby. I was always pushing for more property wise business. Rugby was at the forefront of my mind, and as soon as that happened, I realised like you can have 1,000 problems until you've got a health one, and then that's your only problem is your health really. And then that sort of spills into what I'm doing now, and what I'm trying to get across to everyone I work with is like you've got to prioritise it. There's only a certain amount of things you can really control in regards to your health. The one I was diagnosed with LCH is probably one that I couldn't control, but then there's so much more that you can reduce the risk of just through living a better lifestyle, training, eating well, looking after your heart, your risk of diabetes, your blood pressure, and the amount of bad diseases or health issues which could come down the line 5-10 years down the line. I think it's important that you plan ahead for that and change your lifestyle if you're not already doing so.
Do you mind if I ask if there was much treatment available?
Yeah, so I had a biopsy and essentially like a clean out on my sacrum. So sacrum's like my lower back essentially. And then the one in my hip had a steroid injection, which typically resolves it. So I've got a scan next week to see if that's gone. There's also like radiation you can get a form of chemo, which isn't as aggressive as others. So if it comes back in the future where it's in different locations, then sort of look at different treatment. But for now, it's more of they treat it locally as opposed to systemically. So what I mean by that is they'll treat the hip alone as opposed to my whole body, if that makes sense. But there's also inhibitors and stuff which will stop the gene mutation or prevent it happening as often. Hopefully it doesn't get to that route, but I think like the amount of treatment out there and the severity of it isn't as bad as I first thought, essentially.
So what was it like getting that diagnosis, living with something that around 35 people in the UK live with?
Yeah, it was the week I was waiting to find out like what it was super scary. Because first of all, they thought it could be a secondary tumour from somewhere else in my body, so I had to have CT scans, bloods. So that was a incredibly anxious time. Made myself ill in terms of like the stress and anxiety it was causing me until we found out. And then we thought it was an infection. So it was just going to be a course of antibiotics and then on my way, which was brilliant. And then it came back as LCH, so it was just scrambling and trying to figure out what it was, trying to speak to people because it was so rare. A lot of doctors had never heard of it before, specialists had not heard of it before. So we was trying to find someone who has dealt with it and understood it. So fortunate enough to find a doctor in Bristol who have been under their care. So yeah, I've sort of wrapped my head around it now, and understand it a bit more. But at the time, it was it was terrible.
Mm. And we've seen plenty of sports people live with cancer, get treatment, like David Brooks, for example, and come back. Was that never in your mind? Because you were only 28, retired.
Yeah, with the C word, I feel like I don't really call it that as such, because like I've been on wards and I see the severity of people that are like dealing with cancer, and like I felt like a bit of a fraud the one day. I went in for my bloods and everything, and you see people that are really struggling, and like I was just living a normal life. I'd just come from training, gone to Bristol, get my bloods done, felt fine. And you see like young kids on the ward, it is tough. So don't, because it's not affected my life like massively, I don't tend to look at it as that way. But yeah, the retirement side of things, it was because the tumor on my spine was sitting on my S1 nerve. So your S1 nerve essentially goes down your leg. So I noticed some hamstring issues when I was running. That's what flagged it up with my physio. He sent me for a scan on my lower back, because it's like rugby players, they got bulging discs, back issues. So we just wanted to find out what was happening, and that's when they found that. But since the biopsy, and because there was scar tissue left behind, like didn't really have 100% function in my hamstring. Like I can still train, I can still run, but like playing at a professional level in rugby, being in the jackal position, and like compromised positions was just too much of a risk. Could have led to like issues further down the line with our nerve. So it wasn't a decision for me to make. It was just the natural outcome. But I was at the point in my career where probably would have played a couple of years, but to be honest, I was getting to the point where I was thinking about potentially retiring in a few years. Anyway.
Sinclair Group has been part of the motor industry for over 80 years, and we've never stood still. Because for us, it's not just about where we've been, it's about where we're going. We believe in progress, embracing innovation, investing in technology, and moving towards a more sustainable future for everyone. We offer new and approved used vehicle sales and service for some of the world's most forward-thinking motor brands. But our drive is always to the future. So whether you're starting your journey or continuing your legacy, visit sinclairgroup.co.uk. Belong for good.
You had, as I said at the top, an illustrious career at the Dragons, 10 years, more than 100 games, represented your country as well. What would you say was the highlight of your rugby career?
Highlight was playing for Wales and singing the anthem, seeing all my family, my wife. I think she was my wife at the time.
You want to double check that? You get in trouble if you don't.
Watching me play, so that was the highlight of my career, I'd say.
Yeah. Playing against Tonga, not for Tonga, sorry. Playing against Tonga, and also an uncapped match against the Barbarians as well, which I'd be livid if I'd played for Wales and not got a cap.
I was gutted the Barbarians wasn't a cap, to be honest, because I was stuck on one then against Tonga, whereas they have been known to cap them in the past, but. No, it was the experience of just playing in the Principality Stadium, singing the anthem, family being there. Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah,
being part of that that group as well. The elite of the elite, if you will. Obviously, Dragons is at the elite level, but what did you take away from that experience?
It's quite a difficult week for me, actually. The Barbarians week in camp. I tore my soleus, which is a muscle in your calf, about 4 weeks before, and it's typically an 8-week injury. So I rushed back for that game, so it was touch and go all week. So it was just a case of getting through the week, essentially, to play. And I'd sorted tickets out for all my family to come down, and it was like a day or two before my calf was just in a world of pain. I was thinking, I'm going to have to potentially pull out of this game. But I managed to get through it all right. But it was just my luck the week after then. I think we played, might have been Newcastle or Worcester away, and I ended up pulling it then. So it was never right, essentially, for that week. But I was just glad I managed to get out there.
Gosh, yeah, no, absolutely. I guess when you're at the Dragons and you get the call to say you're going to be playing for your country, what was your reaction? Who did you find out from? Who did you tell first?
So typically it's an email about 15 minutes before squad gets announced. My first initial thoughts was I just hope my calf holds up. I don't know, I'm going to be able to get through training in a couple of days. I spoke to like my wife, parents, and then it's typically announced, so your phone just goes crazy and with loads of messages.
You don't want that email going to your junk, do you?
No, exactly. I know. A lot of players do tend to find out at the same time as the squad gets announced.
Really?
Yeah.
Or because they're just not on their phones?
Yeah, or just sometimes they may not email before the squad gets announced. So a lot of times players will find out when everyone else does, essentially.
Oh gosh, wow. I don't know how I feel about that. Imagine you wake, you're having a nap or something, 25 missed call.
Yeah,
what have I done?
I know.
So yeah, let's go back to the strength and conditioning side of it and PTing then. So what is your favorite part about running a business that is based on something that you've got such a big passion for?
Yeah, I think that's something I always wanted to do, is just find what my purpose was after rugby. Like I said, I never knew until I finished. And I just wanted to do something I enjoyed doing. Property wasn't really that. Whereas the coaching and being involved in fitness, still being involved at the Dragons, is awesome. It's a completely different challenge. Majority of people I work with are just general population, parents, business owners, shift workers, a variety of people, men, women, different ages. I've got a couple of rugby guys that I work with, but it's great to have the balance of going in a couple of days a week with the Dragons and then really pushing the online side of things. We're doing some in-person events, which has been really good to get people in a room and feel the energy and really see the impact it's having on people's lives far beyond just losing some weight and getting in shape. I think the impact it has on a lot of people mentally, and some of the messages I've had have been have really hit home the impact it can have.
People are seeing presumably improvements in their lives that they probably didn't think of beforehand. Obviously you're fitter and you're you feel like you can do more around the house, etc. But it's such a big mental boost. At least I find when you go to the gym.
Yeah, 100%. I've had people say they've gone in for promotions and have just felt so much more confident in themselves, how they look, their appearance. I've had people who've been struggling mentally and said like having a bit of structure to their day, eating well, training, looking after themselves, their lifestyle has improved their mental health massively. People taking off medication for life because their blood pressure's come down, their health markers have improved. So like things like that, when I see messages, I realise like the hours spent on the laptop, the learning, the posting on social media, which I hate doing, it's all worth it because essentially it's changing people's lives. May sound like a lot, but that's exactly what fitness and health and looking after yourself can do.
And I guess seeing that progression from somebody who is not at the point that they want to be in their fitness journey to where they are today, that must be a rewarding feeling for you as well, to see how far they've come.
Oh, 100%. And seeing people, we had an event a couple of months ago where it was about 35, 40 people turned up, which was awesome. And just speaking to a couple of guys I haven't met in person before and like finding out the difference it's made to their lives is super rewarding. I think there's so much conflicting advice and opinions out there for people to actually start who are not come from a fitness background. It's just overwhelming and it puts a lot of people off. Whereas I just want to strip it all back, make it as simple as possible for people, create the least amount of friction for people to eat well and to train as possible. And the benefits that we're seeing is awesome, to be fair. And it's I've really, really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. Meal prepping.
Yeah.
Is it a myth? That's a good question.
No, it helps massively, but I think people think they've got to eat plain chicken and rice and chicken and broccoli to get in shape. Well, that's not the case. Like I eat good meals. My wife and I both cook really enjoyable meals in the night. So I've tried to structure everything around like busy professionals, family men. Like you don't want to be getting home from work and cooking different to your wife, your kids, your husband, your kids. So like just creating a plan which is as easy as possible to stick to, food you still enjoy, but that you're not spending an hour every night preparing, because that you're not going to stick to that for months, and you're not going to stick to that for years and years. You may do it for a couple of weeks, couple of months, but like we want to play the long game, like I said.
And I guess just to refer what we were saying earlier, the diet is such a big part of getting into shape that, if you're spending all that time in the gym and then it's taking time away from being able to prepare a healthier meal, then I suppose it's sort of robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't matter how long you spend in the gym if you're going home and consuming thousands and thousands of calories. But like I've had guys lose 20, 25 kilograms, and they said they're feeling like they're eating more food than before. They're fuller than ever, but it's just more so they're eating the right foods and they understand a little bit more about nutrition, and it's made as simple as possible for them to stick to, and you'd be surprised what you can do in a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Sinclair Group has been part of the motor industry for over 80 years. And in that time, we've learned it's not just about cars, it's about the impact we leave behind. We believe in driving change, supporting the people around us where we live and work. Because when our communities thrive, we all do. We offer new and approved used vehicle sales and service for some of the world's biggest motor brands. But what drives us goes far beyond the road. So whether you're starting your journey or continuing your legacy, visit sinclairgroup.co.uk. Belong for good.
Now, we can't speak about rugby in general without touching on the current situations with the WRU, potential cutting of region, but also the Six Nations, which is one thing to look forward to. I'll let you choose which one we speak about first.
Does WRU one first? Yeah?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, that's fine. Get the bad news out of the way. But listen, it's a difficult time for people who are employed by the regions at the minute. A lot of uncertainty. I just wonder what you and your colleagues are feeling, or how you're feeling at the moment, without everyone knowing exactly what's going to be happening in the next few years.
Yeah, I think that's the difficulty, is the uncertainty. I spoke to a couple of, now I'm on the staff side of things as opposed to players, spoke to a couple of staff from the Ospreys a couple of months ago. And it's just the uncertainty and being out of contract come June, July, and not really knowing what's happening. And the longer it goes on, the worse position players and staff are going to be in terms of trying to find a job. You don't want an influx of players on the market when teams across the border have sorted all their squads out, and then you're sort of scrambling for a contract. So, like, the sooner it's wrapped up, the better. I think it was announced, that's fine. Everyone's accepted of that, but it's more so the uncertainty around things, and people just want to know exactly where they are come July time, when typically players and staff's contracts are up.
Mm-hmm. And from the outside, it would seem like at the moment things are going quite well for the regions. You've all got a chance of qualifying for the Challenge Cup, out of the groups of the Challenge Cup. I wonder how motivation is affected by all this noise from outside.
Yes, it's a tough one. I think boys that are in contract for a while, they're not majorly concerned. It's more so the guys who have got a couple of months left, and just the uncertainty of, like, knowing come July time, are they going to have a contract? Where are they going to be? Are they going to have to move their family, kids to a different country? Because, like, time's ticking, and like after Christmas, the rest of the season goes super quick, and players and staff just want to put things in place so they know exactly what's happening. So hopefully there's something which gets released or decided over the coming weeks now, and everyone can just move on and sort themselves out, hopefully.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I mean, I'm sure everyone at the WRU has got a lot going on with the Six Nations coming up now. I say it's the good news. It's the fun stuff to talk about the playing side, although it's not the best time on the pitch at the minute. It's going to sound quite glib, I imagine, but is the best possible scenario for Wales at the moment just not having another wooden spoon?
You'd like to think Wales would finish towards the top of the table in the Six Nations, but I think the depth of the squad and more so the experience of the squad isn't probably where it used to be in the past. There's heaps and heaps of quality there, but I think, like, your Ireland, your France, they're so strong now. It's going to be difficult, but never say never. Like I said, there's heaps of talent throughout the Welsh squad. There's some good experience there, so only time will tell. Yeah,
from a strength and conditioning point of view, I mean, you see the physicality of the teams, like you mentioned, France and Ireland. How far off are we from being in that sort of bracket, do you think, from a purely physical point of view?
I think a lot of it has to do with, like, the age of the players. There's some young Welsh players in our squad, whereas, like, if you look at the age demographic of the, say, Irish squad, for example, they're a lot older, more developed. There's still some real physical specimens in the Welsh squad. So there's not a massive disparity in physical qualities, in my opinion. A lot of it is experience. A lot of it is, like the amount of caps that our Irish squad has got, probably compared to Wales, and does go a long way at international level. But like I said, only time will tell. A lot of the time, like younger guys, they've just full of energy, really want to make an impression. So, like, looking forward to seeing some of those guys go this Six Nations.
And I suppose ultimately as well, it's about the familiarity with each other, getting that sort of squad together. The more they play with each other, the more that they'll
yeah, exactly. I mean, Steve Tanney's coming now. He's going to have a different approach to other coaches in the past. So it's just getting those guys all on the same page, and the sooner that can happen, then the sooner results will start coming.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Well, just before we do the final question, which I always ask all of our guests, if there's any advice for their younger self, then what would it be? I'll give you a second to think about it. But where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
So on Instagram at Ollie Griffiths online coach. Property business is OG Properties. As you can tell, both of those names didn't take a lot of a lot of thinking of. But yeah, on there, so happy to help if anyone's got any questions. Piece of advice I'd probably give my younger self is you get out exactly what you put in, and that's been the same across rugby career, across the property, and now with the online coaching. I think the more time you spend on something, the more you're willing to invest in yourself, and really push on, the more you get. And that's been the same across everything I've done.
Wonderful. That's a fantastic note to end on. Well, Ollie, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming in today, and it's been a lovely conversation. Wishing you all the very best. I'm sure we'll catch up very soon, and I think you're probably going to end up having me hitting some bags in a little while before you get out here.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
The Businessin Wales Podcast, sponsored by Sinclair Group, the business media for Wales.